Hey guys, Ginger here, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm bringing you guys my March wrap-up. So March was a pretty good month for me. I ultimately wanted to read 10 books by the end of the month, and I got to 9, so that was close enough for me, and I'm pretty happy with my results. So I am going to quickly go over my stats for the month, and then we will get into talking about the individual books. So like I said, I read a total of 9 books in March, which comes out to be about 3,254 pages, which I always like getting over 3,000 pages a month. It just feels good, so I'm pretty happy with that number. And my average star rating was a 3.74, so not too terrible, which I had a lot of 3 or 3.5 stars this month, so it makes sense for the ratings that I got. And then for the different genres, I read 4 thrillers, 3 fantasy or sci-fi, and 2 contemporary novels. So it wasn't completely mixed up, but it was a good mix for the month, so I am pretty happy with what I read. So I'm going to go this time in order from the lowest to highest rated book, and I will just talk about them in that order, which is usually a little different than what I do, but I decided I was going to do it this time. So without further ado, I'm going to actually get into the books. The lowest rated book that I had this month was unfortunately an ARC that came out in March, and that is A Beautiful Bad by Annie Ward. I received this at the very end of February, so I would have read it in February if I got it sooner, but I got it at the end, and so I put it on my March TBR, and I did finish it before it came out, but obviously I'm talking about it now. So now this book is out on the shelves if you do want to pick it up. But unfortunately, I only gave this book a 2 out of 5 stars. It just didn't do the things for me that I usually like in a thriller. So this is a psychological thriller about a marriage gone wrong, and our main character's name is Maggie? Yes, it is Maggie. And overall, I just thought that the plot was kind of boring. The plot twist was very it wasn't that great, and it wasn't memorable like at all. I could not tell you what really happened in this book. I had to go onto Goodreads and look over the synopsis to even be able to tell you that much. And it was a very domestic thriller, so if you are into those kind instead of like murder mysteries and whatnot, then I think this would be the book for you. But for me, it just fell flat, so I only gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. Now moving on to my 3-star book of the month, and it was actually a library book, so I will insert it here, and that is That Summer by Sarah Dessen. So I was actually going to do a big Sarah Dessen video for this month, and after reading this book, I kind of put that idea onto the back burner because I just realized I wasn't in the mood to read Sarah Dessen. And this was her first book that she ever wrote. It just was an okay book for me. It follows our main character Haven, and she is 15, and she's kind of growing up and becoming herself in this summer novel, and there's a lot of life events that are changing in her life that are causing her to just think about everything and wonder what is going on. So the main things for me that made it only a 3-star was that this focused on a younger character, so I couldn't relate to her as much, and I thought that it was actually super short for as much emotional content that Sarah Dessen was trying to put into the book. It was only 200 pages, and it seemed like it went way too quickly to actually resolve some of the issues that our main character was having. As well, it wasn't super anticlimactic, and it just kind of brushed over everything in a way. Nothing was super dished out. It just kind of resolved itself in a very general way. So overall, it just was a average 3-star book for me, and not my favorite Sarah Dessen. But I do have high hopes that I will still enjoy some of her more recent publications because I have liked a lot of her other books in the past. Now moving on to the 3.5 stars. I had 3 of these this month, so I will just pick one to talk about first. Alright, so I will talk about Saving Megan by DJ Palmer first. I received this as an ARC, and it does come out in April, so if the premise intrigues you, go ahead and pick this copy up when it comes out. So this is a domestic thriller about our main character Megan, who is a 15-year-old girl, and she has an unknown illness, and they've been trying to figure it out for a long time, and about her mother, who is very protective and she will do anything at all costs to make sure her daughter is okay. I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars, like I said, and I thought that the plot idea was very unique and it wasn't something that I've ever heard of before. It deals a lot with medical issues and malpractice and those kinds of ideas, but I thought that the plot was pretty general. When it came to the thriller aspect and the twist aspect, it was pretty tropey, so that didn't really impress me, but I was pretty intrigued with the actual plot, and it was something I haven't read before. So if that is something that would intrigue you, then I would encourage you to still pick this up, even though I only gave it a 3.5, because that mostly had to do with my personal preference for thrillers and their twists. So that's why this got that rating. The next 3.5 was also a thriller, and it is In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. This is my third Ruth Ware book, and I would say that it's actually probably my favorite of the three. And this follows our main character, Nora, and for 10 years she had never talked to her best friend again until one day she gets invited to her bachelorette party, and she's very confused as to why. So she ends up going, and things kind of just happen. I thought again with this one that the plot was very generic and pretty tropey, so when it came down to the twists, I wasn't super impressed, but in comparison to her other books, I thought it was the best thriller of the three, and I still have one more to read of hers, so I'm excited to see how that one goes. One of the really good things about this book is that it was very fast-paced, so I got through it very, very quickly, so that made it more enjoyable, and it was a book that got me out of my reading slump, even though I didn't give it the highest rating. So if you're looking for a fast-paced thriller with some interesting twists that you may or may not like, then I would definitely say pick this one up. And then the last 3.5 star I have here is a fantasy, and that is Snow Like Ashes by Sarah Rosh. So this fantasy follows our main character Mira and a group of runaways whose kingdom has fallen and they are trying to regain their power. This follows a series of 8 kingdoms. There are 4 season kingdoms, so they follow the 4 seasons, and there are 4 rhythm kingdoms, and they are, I don't know, music based. We didn't really get to see much of their lore, and so the premise overall intrigued me, but the big problem I had with this is that the first 150 pages were so slow and so boring that I almost DNF'd this book. Luckily, right before I was going to put it down, a plot twist happened that intrigued me enough to continue, and I did end up finishing it. The main things I didn't like were the main character overall, plus that boring first half, and there was a lot of tropes that I didn't enjoy, like how the main character was portrayed and how some of the aspects got resolved, and there's also a love triangle, so that can get a little annoying sometimes. But I did like one of our main characters of Theron, and I thought that, again, the actual concept of the fantasy world was interesting, but it just wasn't one of my favorite fantasy novels, so I don't know if I will continue on with the series. But this might be something for you if you enjoy YA fantasy, because it still does have an interesting premise and could have a plot that intrigues you more than me. Moving on to my 4-star read of the month. It was the last arc that I got to this month, and that is The Girl He Used to Know by Tracy Garvis Graves. This is a contemporary novel about a girl who dated a boy in college, and they broke up, and now it is 10 years later, and they have found each other again and are trying to see if they could work out. Our main character has a lot of rep when it comes to being someone who has a hard time with social cues and with making good relationships, so I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And the romance that happened between her and her romantic interest, Jonathan, was very cute, and I could enjoy it, and I really liked reading about it. But the main thing that I didn't super like is that the ending was a little out of place in my opinion, and it really caught me off guard, so I wasn't sure how I felt about that. And I don't usually read contemporary, so it just wasn't something that I was completely drawn to, but I still enjoyed it overall, and if you are interested in contemporaries, then I would suggest you pick this up because it was really good. Now I have a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and that is Unravel by Kalia Reed. I picked this book up because Lala over at Books and Lala said this was one of her favorite thrillers, so I decided to give it a chance, and boy oh boy was she right. This follows our main character Naomi, and she is in a mental institute trying to find out why she's in there and what she can't really remember about her past. And I thought that for a thriller, this was really good, and this is one of the books where I actually guessed the twist, but I still enjoyed it. And I think that that is something that's very powerful, because a lot of times in thrillers, if I know what's going to happen, then I am not as keen to like it, but in this case I still really did. And trigger warnings for rape, sexual assault, and other things like that, but if you can read that kind of stuff, then I highly recommend you pick this up, because it was really, really well written, fast paced, and a great thriller overall. And then I have 2 5-star reads for the month, which I'm super excited to talk about, and they probably won't come as much of a surprise if you are not new to the booktube community. The first one I have here is actually a reread that you guys decided for me to read at the end of the month, and that is Cinder by Marissa Meyer. This book was so good, much better than I remembered, and I actually gave it a higher rating than I did the first time I read it, and I gave it a 5 stars instead of a 4.5. I actually also tried to annotate this, which was a interesting journey, and even though I don't think I'm going to annotate many other books, it was still fun to give it a try. This, if you didn't already know, is about our main character Cinder, and it is a Cinderella retelling, kind of meets Star Wars, kind of meets Terminator. And so this is a sci-fi fantasy, which was really refreshing to read, and it follows Cinder trying to figure out her place in this world, and she kind of gets sucked up into political things and other dramas. So if you haven't picked up the Lunar Chronicles for yourself, I would highly, highly recommend you doing so. And I'm going to be reading the second book in the series for the Alice TBR this month, so I am super excited to continue on and excited that I did get a chance to reread this. And then the last book will probably also not come as a surprise if you watched my February wrap up, and that is Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. I absolutely adored Six of Crows, which is about a band of misfits who go on a heist, and it's just, that's all you really need to know. Great characters, great plot, great writing. This is the sequel, so I'm not going to be able to go into much of it, but it takes place right after the end of Six of Crows, so I would highly recommend you picking up this duology if you haven't already. It just is such a great fantasy novel with well-written characters and interesting plot lines and a great magic system. So all of that kind of should be enough to get you to read it, I hope. But I'm super glad to get this as soon as I finished the book from the library. I bought myself a copy to match my Six of Crows, which is up there and you can't see it. And I love these sprayed edges. These books are just so freaking nice. But anyway, so yes, another 5-star read for the month. So there you have it, guys. Those are the 9 books that I read in March. Let me know in the comments below if any of these are your favorites or if any of these sound intriguing and you want to pick them up. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and to hit that subscribe button. And until my next video, I will see you guys then. Bye!